Well, good morning. Today is July 5th, 2026, and I am looking at Cardano, ticker symbol ADA, specifically on the Binance exchange chart. Now, before I get started, I just want to say I'm an amateur trader and investor. During the day, I have a different job that doesn't involve trading. So as I am going over these charts, please keep in mind I am not a professional. Uh, Charting is a hobby of mine, but I probably don't have the nuance of a professional who has been doing it years and years. Now, my goal with this channel is just simply to show you what I'm seeing in the charts, maybe uh, teach a few trading concepts. But in the end, if you uh, do some more research on any asset I cover and then get a second opinion, I just consider my duty done. Okay. With that being said, let's just go ahead and get into it. So last time I talked about Cardano, it was May 28th, 2026, and I mentioned that we had a excuse me, a incoming death cross, and that death cross has occurred. I also talked about how we had a wedge pattern where your price was going up and down here, and this was kind of the base of the wedge pattern. And unfortunately, I was hoping that Cardano would reverse and go up and then have an explosive move. But like I said in the last video, based on this weekly cross, incoming weekly cross, it it may have more downside. And so unfortunately that's what occurred. Okay. So we had the death cross, and his price has come down to this new support zone of about 13 cents. Okay. And I draw these as a zone because even though you could just draw a straight line, it's really more of a zone. As you can see, it kind of dipped in here, kept there a while, and then went down. Okay. Now, we've talked about wedge patterns before on this channel, and on when we've talked about it previously, the wedge channel actually broke out. But this is an example of a wedge pattern breaking down. And so with wedge patterns, what we talk about is we go here, we draw a line from the start of the wedge, and that is about here. And you take where the price dropped, which was here, and you line that up, and you're there. Okay. So I also mentioned that uh, it's not perfect, okay, and that usually it comes up to about 60% of where that number is. Ironically, this has come down this far. I've probably also mentioned before that I prefer to do this instead. You take this particular point, okay, and you do this, and then you bring it down. But in this case, it was definitely more. This was more accurate of the downward movement than this was. Okay, so that wedge pattern is now broken out. We actually still are in a wedge pattern because price has yet to cross above this particular line. And so you could, argue that we are still in the wedge pattern. However, okay, a couple other things I want to bring up before we start, worrying about more downside to Cardano. Okay, I'm going to scroll this out here a little bit. And in a previous video, I talked about the wave theory and how whenever you start a bull or bear market run, okay, it typically has 3 to 5 waves. Okay, Cardano on this last move has completed its fifth wave. Okay, all right, so now it's hit down and it's traveling up to here. Okay, if we look at this uh, from a RSI perspective, okay, so I brought up. I really want to mention the RSI, so I jumped the gun, but we are going to look at a few other indicators here. Okay, so we got the stochastic RSI, we've got the RSI, and we've got the money flow index. Okay, starting from the top. This is the relative strength index, also known as the RSI. It measures overbought, oversold. Overbought is 80 and above, or 70 and above, and oversold is 30 and below. Okay. If I scroll this out on the weekly, we have gone into the lowest oversold low we've ever had on the RSI with Cardano. And since then, okay, based on that lowest low on the weekly chart, it has now gone up. You also see this if you look at it from a monthly perspective, notice that, see how low it has gone below from what it did on the monthly. And so even with longer term or midterm, weekly, I consider a midterm, uh, the RSI got way oversold, okay, and it is now in the process of coming out of being oversold and inching its way up. Okay, from a stochastic RSI perspective, this measures momentum. Okay, and usually during a specific year, most assets, not all of them, but most of them have two weekly stochastic RSI crosses. ADA had a stochastic RSI cross in March of 2026, and it came down here and went below the 20 because the 20 below 20 is considered the reset, but it didn't come very far over the 20, and now it's back above the 20, and it's going to probably confirm above the 20 sometime today because we are on the weekly chart, and this last weekly candle has not printed. Okay, so that is a strength, that is showing momentum strength. Okay, on the money flow index, this is another way to measure overbought, oversold, except it does it based on volume versus price. And as you can see, we came to oversold, which is below 20, and now we've come up a little bit above it. Okay, so we are having a momentum switch in Cardano. Okay, now if I go look at another indicator, we're going to come over to this chart. Let me move this to the weekly, and this is the ADX, or directional movement indicator, and it measures momentum as well. It also takes a look at buying and selling of a particular asset. So this line just represents momentum. It doesn't care whether you're in a bear market or a bull market. It just measures momentum. It's sitting at 35. You are considered trending if you're 20 or above. So this particular indicator says we are definitely trending, okay? Based on our last candle, it looks like we're more in a bullish trend now. However, the momentum was up here at 37 when we were during this last push downwards from Cardano, the last bearish push here. Okay, and if you look at where the selling pressure is and the buying pressure, so the blue is buying, the dotted red line is selling. These are getting closer to each other. Okay, and that is actually a bullish sign, because what you want to occur is you want something like this to happen. You see how high Cardano got here? You want this buying to overtake the selling and then push up to here. Okay, all right, so we've taken a look at momentum, and we've taken a look at where we are at the chart. What can we expect if you are somebody who's very interested in Cardano? What can you expect in the future? Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to kind of switch to that kind of point. Okay. So bottom line, the bear market for Cardano is over. Okay. Does that mean that we are at the lowest low that it's going to have? Not necessarily. However, it's not going to be much lower than this. Okay. And why would that low occur? That low would occur if Wells and big institutions decide that they want to get into Cardano. Okay. Based on what I'm seeing now, okay, I don't see Wells and I don't see big institutions getting into Cardano yet. It's still a little bit early. We just got out of the bear market last week. Okay. You may start seeing signals like that. Okay. And how that's going to show up, and I've in my last video I kind of talked about the signs and how to look for it, but right now I'm not seeing anything really special. Okay. But what I expect to happen in the future is the following. Okay. And some things to keep in mind. So if you've not been invested in Cardano yet, but you really want to be, maybe you made a lot of money in the past and you're looking at the best time to try to get in, well, we are there. Okay. And it's not that you have to rush in today to get in Cardano, because I do think it's going to range a little bit. And I'm going to go over those reasons now why I think Cardano is going to range. Okay. Uh, if you look at the price of Cardano, I'm going to take this 50 off here. Okay. And we're on the weekly again. All right. On the weekly, we have a situation where price, we had something called what's called a three finger spread. Okay. That's where you have your 200, you have your 20, and then you have your price well below the 20. And what price wants to do is it normally wants to retrace and be closer to the 20. Does that mean it touches that 20? It doesn't always touch the 20, but it wants to reach higher and get close to the 20. Okay. Now, I don't know if Cardano is going, if this particular candle is going to go up there and wick to this particular 20, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next weekly candle, you have another bullish weekly candle and you come close to this trend line and it touches and then it starts going down again. Okay. Why would it go down again? Well, you still have this trend line here that acts as upward resistance. You have the 20, which is still going down. Okay. It isn't flattening. It isn't flattening. Keep in mind that the support and resistance properties of a 8 or 20 moving average are strongest when it's on a downward slope like this. Okay. Where it's itching down like this. When it's flat, that it's its weakest support and resistant points. Okay, so if the price actually hits the 20 here, the 20 is still pointing down, and therefore it will act as this will act as resistance, and price will probably come down. Okay, and what that starts is what we call ranging. Okay, uh, specifically, if I were to just bring up my brush here, there's only three states a particular asset can be in: a upward state, a sideways state, and a downward state. And I did those in the wrong order, but normally you should draw it over here. So normally what happens is you kind of see this parabola, okay, and then it kind of goes up like that. This period represents the ranging, okay. All right, so that's where we are with Cardano right now. Is we are going to probably start ranging. How long can this ranging period last? I don't know. I can't tell you. Oh, October 10th, it's going to stop ranging and start going up. I don't have that type of information. Okay. All right. The market will decide when the ranging period is open. It may just be very short. It may just have two candles or three candles and then go up. We don't know, but you can sometimes tell short term what is likely to happen. Okay. Right now we're in a medium term. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to short term, which would be the daily chart. Okay. So if we go to the daily chart, we're going to take a look at the moving averages here. And we have this 200-day moving average, which is a very important long-term moving average. And then you have the 20, which is a very important short-term moving average. And as you can see on the daily chart, price has gotten above the 20. And notice how flat the 20 was. It wasn't exactly flat, but it was not going down at an angle like this. And you see how the price just sort of exploded across it, because when a short-term moving average like the 20 is flat, it has its weakest resistance and support properties. Okay. And you can also bring on the 8. And if you look at the 8, it was flat here when price crossed over it. And now the 8 is going up. But one thing I want to keep in mind, remember how I told you that price does not like to get very far across the 20. Right now on today's chart, uh, it's red. I don't know if it's going to continue being red, but the price is starting to get away from the 20. Okay. A lot of times what happens is if you're a shorter term trader, like a swing trader that that does things on the 4 hour, the daily, you typically are looking more at the simple moving average or the exponential moving average. I'm not going to go into the difference of those two today, but I like to use simple moving average. And as you can tell, we just had a cross of the 8 above the 20, and see how far the price is, okay, to the 8. Uh, I really would just look at the 20. But what my point is, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing the price kind of wiggle down. And then if this moving average is still streaking up, it may hold as support. And then you kind of go up like this. Okay. So short term, that's what I'm expecting to happen. It could also do this because the price got so far from the 20. Okay. See, the 20 is down here. It may the 8 moving average may not be able to stop the price, and you may see price come back to the 20 and then start seeing a move up. So that's what I'm expecting short term. But really, from a long term perspective, here's what I'm seeing, and this is why I think we're going to be ranging for a while. So when I say ranging for a while, maybe a month or two. Okay. Here's the reason why. This 200 daily moving average is in a downward slope. However, its downward slope is flattening. And it appears that, probably here in July sometime, it's going to hit these two trend lines. So uh, we've got this, I'm going to call it a downward angle trend line. We have the horizontal trend line where it stopped there at the past. If we take this look at this, you see in the past, this has been a support and resistance zone. Price would kind of stop here, and now since we blew through it, it's now going to be resistance. But before it used to be support. Okay. So what we could be seeing if the 200 moving average comes down here and flattens some more, okay, and it looks like it's probably because it's kind of curving. Let me see if let me get my brush. I think you're going to see something like this. It may go below the trend line, but it's going to probably do something like this, okay, where it's flattening. And during this flattening period, the 200 will have its strongest support and resistance properties. And therefore, I expect you're going to see the price of Cardano kind of go like this. Okay. And I do not know how long it's going to do it. But like I said, I do think I wouldn't be surprised if it's a month or two. So, what does this mean for you as a trader and investor? That means that if you've never been in Cardano before, or let's say you invested here and you've dropped down here, uh, this is another point to where you can get back into Cardano and accrue more tokens. And I would not sell these tokens here. I would just start buying down here again as you have capital that comes available. And whenever Cardano starts its bull run, It'll probably eventually get back up here, but you will be in profit sooner. Okay. For example, if you had invested at this line here and you didn't sell once it crossed below here, then if you buy down here, you will be in profit sooner. Okay. Then if you just sold up here and then try to reaccumulate down here, it is an option, but my recommendation is do not sell your position if you were here. Just buy more down here. You'll be in profit faster. Okay. So we've talked about how I think our Cardano is going to range. Okay. And you're going to see it go up and down for a little while. I do not know how long. Okay. We don't currently see signs of market manipulation right now. Uh, so that's all I can say is we don't see signs of market manipulation at the moment. At least I don't. Okay. Uh, I'm not seeing the telltale signs yet. That doesn't mean it isn't coming, but uh, in my opinion, and this is just strictly my opinion, for disclosure's sake, I am not invested in Cardano. I don't think I'm going to be getting back into Cardano this year. The main reason is because I already have other crypto investments that I'm invested in, and let me just push this away here. Those aren't those, by the way. Um, the And so what I'm trying to say is that you know one of the problems with trading and one of the problems with when you start out to trade is every asset is like a shiny object. There are lots of assets that move, um, have their bull markets together, or maybe their chart looks promising. But the problem is that if you only have so much capital, you have to you have to stack that capital on the same asset. And when you try to capture every single shiny object, you just typically what is going to happen is you're not going to be able to keep track of all those charts on a daily basis. You're going to lose your sell points correctly. And so what it comes down to is you have to, pick and choose which assets you're going to stick with. And Cardano is currently not one of those for me. But that doesn't mean that it can't be for you. When I so in the near so what I'm saying is like I mentioned before, the bear market is over. We are probably moving to a ranging period. And therefore what that means is that the price is going to probably trade within these two resistance points. So you've got your resistance up here and you got your support down here. So that means if you have, for example, $100 to put into Cardano, I would do it. And let's say you're not into Cardano at all yet, I would set up buy limits. And what a buy limit is where you tell the market, I'm interested at buying a certain price, but the price is not there yet. Okay. So with your $100, first, I would go ahead and put your $25 in right now. But I would take your other buy limits and I would, for example, maybe set up a buy limit here. Okay. That's another $25. Maybe set another buy limit here of $25 and maybe here. Okay. All right. That way you're getting Cardano at a lower price. Because like I said, I do think that this is going to act as support. If I bring up the 200-day moving average, okay, once this 200-day reaches this support line, not only are you going to have this horizontal resistance zone, okay, here, and you have this you have this angle down slope here, you have this horizontal resistance zone here. This kind of creates a resistance pocket, so it's going to hit that and it's going to bounce down. Now, will it bounce down to the bottom? I can't say that for sure, but more than likely it probably will. And that's why I suggest you do buy limits. Okay, that way you're catching Cardano at a lower price, and so that price would be somewhere between 14 cents and $1.22. Okay. And that's what I think is coming up in the near future for Cardano. Now, long term, okay, I do want to mention that, I don't really want to get too deep into this, but I see that there is a resistance zone here. Okay. If you see where I have this kind of dotted line here. All right. So I'll just go ahead and do it. We'll just say it. There's a minor resistance zone here. And then I see another minor resistance zone here. And you could even say here, but you'll notice that this resistance zone gets you to where you're touching this long-term angled resistance line. So if for some reason I don't talk about Cardano in the near future, what you want to look for is those specific areas of where price might struggle against. Okay. And we've talked about the wave theory and how to recognize it. Uh, once the actual bull market starts, you can look at the waves and see if they're lining up, essentially. Okay. And that way you'll know that once you hit the fifth wave, if there is a fifth wave, now keep in mind three is most common, but once you get to the third wave is going to be the point where you're going to want to take a significant profits. You don't have to get completely out of Cardano, but you want to take a lot of profits out of whatever you invested to in Cardano, and then let whatever you leave behind just ride a fourth and fifth wave if it occurs. Okay, so that's all I have for this morning. I hope you have a blessed day, and as with anything, I'll just mention this again. Uh, really take it to the Lord when you're considering investing in anything. He answers prayers and He gives you guidance, but always take it to the Lord for any major decision that you have in your life. You can rely on Him to give you guidance for these type of things. With that said, have a great day.